Right now, your borrowing capacity is likely to be much lower than you think. With 13 rate hikes since May 2022, the lending landscape has completely changed for property buyers. I'm Angela Flannery from Palise Property, and after seeing so many buyers struggle with this exact problem, I've noticed patterns in how the most successful property buyers maximize their borrowing capacity. So in this video, I'll share 5 specific hacks that focus on getting your loan structure right, smart debt management strategies, using entity structures to your advantage, working with the right lending expert, and managing your finances to boost your serviceability. Ready to jump in? Let's go. We'll start with my first hack. Consider how much HECS debt is impacting your borrowing capacity. Based on recent data, there are about 3 million Australians with unpaid HECS help debt, which means there are definitely a few of you watching that have HECS debt attached to your name. There's a lot of mixed opinions on this topic, so I'll say that you should definitely get personal advice from your accountant and broker as to how much your HECS is impacting your borrowing capacity. But research from Compare the Market revealed a university graduate on a salary of $125,000 paying off an average HECS debt of almost $26,500 would have their borrowing capacity reduced by $95,900. If you look at these repayment rates and plug in your annual salary, let's use $125,000 for an example again, you can see here that your repayment rate is 8%, which is $10,000 for the year. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but the banks will see that as a liability when they assess your ability to service a loan. Of course, as I mentioned, your goals and financial situation really matter with this one though. So if you have, let's say, a HECS balance of about $35,000 and $60,000 saved for your deposit, I probably wouldn't suggest that you pay off your HECS debt if your goal is to get into the property market as soon as possible. Because chances are you'll still be able to get a big enough loan to buy one property. You might struggle when it comes to your second and third property, and you can start to look into how to start reducing your HECS to increase your serviceability. Where if you were to use your savings to pay off your HECS, then that's great. You're student debt free. But now you're quite a few years away from being able to buy a property again. So you really need to speak to a broker and have a plan around how much your HECS is impacting your borrowing capacity. Which leads me to hack number 2, get a good mortgage broker. This might seem like the obvious one, but you'd be surprised at how many people are skeptical about brokers. But I promise you, there is so much value in having a really good broker in your team. Even as someone who works in the buyer's agency space and keeps up with the market and lending environment, I have a broker who helps me align my ability to borrow with my goals. You must keep in mind that lending policies are consistently changing, and where one lender may have been good for you at one point, they may have changed their policies so much it no longer aligns with your goals. And unless you're reviewing policies and rates all day, every day, you're not going to know that. A good example of how your broker may be able to help you increase your borrowing capacity is to extend your existing loan terms, which is actually my third hack. When you're taking out a mortgage, you're usually taking it out on a 30-year loan term, which means after 30 years, your loan and its interest will be paid off. Obviously, every year you pay off your mortgage, you're closer to being debt-free, which is fantastic. But if you're wanting to expand your portfolio, you're going to have to rely on debt to buy more properties until they're essentially paying for themselves. So, what a mortgage broker can do is help you refinance that loan back to 30 years. I know you're thinking that it probably sounds counterintuitive, but a 30-year loan versus a 25-year loan can increase your capacity significantly, simply because your monthly repayments are spread over a longer period. I'll show you an example using this repayment calculator. Let's say you have $600,000 left on your loan and the term remaining is 20 years. Your interest rate is 6.5% and you're currently paying the principal and interest amounts. Your repayments would be nearly $4,500 a month. Now let's look, if extending that back to a 30-year loan, your repayment amounts reduced by nearly $700 a month, which could actually increase your borrowing capacity by quite a bit. Of course, if you look at the graph, your amount of interest has increased quite a lot. But at the end of the day, if you're buying the right properties, their growth in the long term will far outweigh paying more interest in the short term. And that's because I consider this good debt. It's debt that's helping you build a future. In this example, we spoke about refinancing to extend your loan term, but there are other ways to refinancing your existing debt to increase your borrowing capacity. Which brings me to hack number 4. Banks don't reward loyalty, so it's always in your best interest to shop around or have your mortgage broker shop around. If you find a lender that'll even reduce your current rate by 1% on that $600,000 loan we discussed earlier, you're saving nearly $5,000 a year. There are also other ways that refinancing can help you. For example, debt recycling strategies would involve using equity in an existing property to borrow more funds. You can then use the borrowed funds to invest in an investment property. The interest on that investment property now becomes tax deductible. So you're turning non-deductible home loan debt into tax deductible investment loan debt. You can even refinance your loan to consolidate high interest debts like personal loans and credit cards into your home loan, which can help lower your monthly commitments. This leads me to my last hack of this video: get rid of bad debt. People generally classify credit cards, car loans, and personal loans as bad debt because A, they're high interest, and B, they aren't essentially helping you generate wealth like an investment property loan would, for example. These types of debts also really hurt your borrowing capacity because they often signal risky money behavior to lenders. And what most people don't realize is when they're assessing your capacity, they're looking at your limits, not how much of the credit you've used. So if you have a $10,000 credit card limit, that will set you back around about $40,000 in your serviceability, even if you haven't used a single dollar on that credit card. So cancel any unused credit cards, reduce your limits where you can, and pay off any debt before considering applying for a mortgage. This will make a huge difference on how much a lender will be willing to loan you. If there is one key takeaway from this video, it would just be get the right people on your team, including a good broker. I'm sure there are 100 other strategies you can leverage to increase your borrowing capacity, and a good broker will show you exactly how. Once you've got your borrowing capacity sorted, you may be interested in seeing on how you can retire rich with just 2 properties. If so, go check out Steve's video.